We'll be talking about the Roshan Digital Account, whose inflows have reached 1.87 billion US dollars by the end of July. More in the following report.
Roshan Digital Account, a banking solution for non-resident Pakistanis, earns kudos by securing the whopping $1.87 billion inflows at the end of July. According to stats shared by State Bank of Pakistan, RDA received $307 million remittances in July compared to $310 million in June, exhibiting flow of over $300 million per month. The cumulative stats data depicts that till now, non-resident Pakistanis from over 175 countries have opened 199,747 accounts across different Pakistani banks through online digital portals without physically visiting branches. The milestone inflow of deposits by overseas Pakistanis demonstrated sound confidence and interest of non-resident Pakistanis in this initiative. Thus, this landmark initiative launched by State Bank of Pakistan back in September 2020 has been unprecedentedly successful in facilitating non-resident Pakistanis to enable them to remotely open bank accounts in Pakistan. Furthermore, this risky gamble paved way for working on novel ideas for countries' foreign exchange reserves. The success story of Roshan Digital Account will hopefully pay enormous long-term dividends in the international market as persistent financial inflows strengthen country's image in global financial order. State Bank also asserted that Pakistan's external position was at its strongest in several years. It is pertinent to mention here that Pakistan is recovering from pandemic-induced recession through economic pragmatism such that the current economic recovery is accompanied by external stability.
Now, to talk more about Pakistan's economy and how the Roshan Digital Account has helped it grow even further, we've been joined by Dr. Usman Chohan. He's a leading economist from Pakistan. Dr. Saab, thank you very much to have joined us. Dr. Saab, first of all, tell all of those viewers who do not understand a bit about the concept of the Roshan Digital Account.
What the Roshan Digital Account aims to do is bring in foreign capital that is owned by Pakistanis so that they can invest in the country, so they gain an honest and reasonable return, but they also contribute to national development through a normalized banking channel that offers the same service to all overseas Pakistanis.
All right. What exactly is capital flight, Dr. Saab?
Capital flight is the idea that when things get bad, the money goes out the door first. And emerging markets always face this crisis that although they lure money when the times are good because the rates of return are higher, when the times are bad, foreign investors often take their money out of emerging markets first because the risk profile is so much higher. Pakistan has faced capital flight in the past. And there is a big concern always for all emerging markets that if things get bad, the money will go that we have attracted.
So what in this case of the Roshan Digital Accounts and the different mechanisms, the different processes that have been launched under it, for example, the Naya Pakistan certificates also as well, how durable, how stable are they?
This is an excellent question, a deep question about whether having this instrument to bring in money into Pakistan will stand the test of time. I believe it will. I believe that it's a good program in that sense because the Pakistanis who live abroad, they face an otherness in those societies which makes them recognize the importance of investing in Pakistan. They want to have a connection to the country. And in that context, if times are tough here, they will not take their money out the door, I hypothesize, as a foreign investor looking at a portfolio of countries would. And so that's the durability of this. As you asked for the Naya Pakistan certificate, it is one of the instruments that you can invest in as part of this scheme. But there's questions about how much we are paying in interest.
The interest rate, of course. Speaking of the interest rate, what kind of questions do people have as far as the Naya Pakistan certificates are concerned? Are these queries or questions genuine?
Yes, they are. Particularly the question of what is the return that they're getting. So Naya Pakistan certificates pay 6%, and at higher tenors or longer tenors, they pay more than that. For a US dollar denominated account, for Pakistani, they pay 10% return. So then my question as an investor or an economist is, 6% US dollar return here versus virtually zero in the United States, because interest rates have gone to zero, pandemic and also the 2008 financial crisis. You can just put the money there and get nothing, or you get 6%. 600 basis points return has to be paid by the Pakistanis here, the taxpayer. So in a sense, I believe that it's a transfer of wealth in the long run from Pakistanis living here to Pakistanis living abroad, because somebody has to pay that interest. How is the government going to do it? It's from us. So interest rates are the price of money, and at some point the price of money is too high.
All right, how can you balance that out?
One thing is to look at the interest rates that you get on currencies abroad or on instruments abroad and make it a lower return, especially if you believe that Pakistanis will invest in this. Maybe you can have a flexible interest rate. Maybe you can have a schedule that different instruments have different interest rates over different tenors that reflects the risk. The problem is that international markets always misprice the risk of Pakistan because of the news flow, the negative image that is generated by our enemies. And so they exaggerate the amount of risk. Pakistanis overseas know what Pakistan really is. They long to come back. So their idea of risk is far lower. 6% is probably an average of those two numbers.
All right. So now speaking again about these Roshan digital accounts and different instruments, as you've pointed out, under these. The governor of the State Bank of Pakistan said last month that since September, these initiatives for overseas Pakistanis had generated an inflow of 1.8 billion US dollars. Do you feel this is going at an increasing level? Do you feel in the coming months this amount is also going to increase? And do you feel this is a steady trend?
That is an excellent question, and I believe it is. On average, the click is $300 million per month, and so the 1.8 billion plus is the cumulative since last September. I believe that because the conditions in Pakistan are continually looking comparatively better, more and more money will come in. Not just that it's our Pakistanis living abroad, but the overall investment climate is going to be better. And a big part of that is the coronavirus pandemic that was handled well by our government. It makes it look like a stable and sane society, particularly compared to our neighbors.
All right. Now, in March this year, it was told to us that the digital account had attracted 671 million US dollars in the first 6 months. Then we were told that 1 billion had been achieved by April this month. And now we are, of course, in the month of August, and in July, in the fiscal year, at $1.87 billion. And you say that trend is going to continue at a steady pace. What other instruments do you feel that the government or the State Bank of Pakistan could bring in to attract the expatriates, to attract those Pakistanis who want to invest in Pakistan?
That's an excellent question. There's two parts, which channels and which end use. So in terms of the channels, I think Roshan Digital Account should be the mainstream. That should be the standardized model for all capital to come from our expatriates. In addition, Pakistan is raising capital in the international markets, the Eurobonds and stuff, with the idea that having a large buffer of reserves will make our economy strong and resilient to crises. This is, of course, the model that other countries have followed to withstand crises. This is the Mahathir model for Malaysia that they had to, after the Baht crisis of 1998, they had to have $100 billion in reserves, and they do. They have $106 billion. India has also piled a large trove of reserves that's about $600 billion. And so we, at $25 billion, are increasing it. But we should also aim for $100 billion. But again, the question is at what price of money? And as far as the end use, well, there's plenty of projects that are happening in Pakistan. We just simply have to look at the portfolio, which includes the Naya Pakistan certificate, and see how the government is deploying that capital to earn a higher return. Because if you bring in all this money and pay a high interest rate, but you're not using it for anything, then you have different problems.
All right. Now, let's also talk about the current account deficit that the State Bank of Pakistan said had fallen 2.6% of the GDP. He said that it was the lowest in 10 years, and it was supported by all-time high exports and remittances. But he also said that this current economic recovery should be accompanied by external stability. Would this trend continue in the months to come, or do you feel there could be a destabilization due to certain external factors?
There is always the risk of external destabilization, and the biggest one in my mind is the coronavirus pandemic. As the Delta variant spreads and all of these strains happen, perhaps the international markets may be roiled. But the problem is that in the financial, particularly the equity markets, have been rising up even though the real economies have been in big trouble. The US stock market, for example, because so much money was pumped into the system, had nowhere to go except the stock market, and so the valuations of companies did not reflect the fact that there's economic paralysis. And that's the problem between financial markets today and the reality. And it's very ironic to me because Pakistan here is worrying about a 6% interest rate and this, that, but the world is awash in dollars. That's where the politics comes in.
All right. I mean, that's a very interesting point that you've raised. Also, continuing on this whole discussion on the economy, Pakistan's reserve buffers are expected to rise by another $2.8 billion in the month of August. This was also said by the State Bank governor through the IMF's planned new global SDR allocation. Now, when the IMF comes into play, there are a lot of other questions that come into mind as well. Do you feel that the current account deficit for the current fiscal year could be in the range of 2 to 3% as has been enunciated, and much higher than the 0.6% of GDP in the fiscal year 2021?
It certainly could. That's because right now it's minus 0.6, but our obligations abroad could change that number. With the IMF's SDRs, this is actually a good thing. This is not the same as us borrowing from the IMF through the external fund, the EFF. That is different. This SDR is a stake in the special drawing rights that all countries have a right to, and this is a reflection of the IMF recognizing that it has to put out more capital as countries require stimulus during the pandemic. Our Prime Minister had advocated strongly for increasing not just the absolute number of SDRs, but the developing countries' portion of the special drawing rights. So I think that is a very good thing because that is a form of exchangeable capital. You go to the IMF and you can exchange the SDRs for dollars in an emergency. So that is a good thing.
All right. Also, Pakistan needs up to 20 billion US dollars for external payments in the fiscal year 2022, which is, of course, the reason for the higher current account deficit. Do you feel that these payments are achievable? And if so, do you feel there could be certain factors that could boost them?
Absolutely. One thing that is good is the exports. The other good thing is the remittances. And then this Russian digital account also plays a role in that as part of the channel of money coming through. Our remittances are strong, although people at the beginning of the pandemic last year predicted that people would lose their jobs abroad and wouldn't send money. But actually, they have been quite resilient. Similarly, our exports, our major exporting categories, actually took share from other countries and took orders, and their orders were booked for a long schedule. So actually, in terms of the pandemic and the resilience, it's actually been a test for Pakistan that it has passed successfully.
The number of Roshan digital accounts by the end of July has touched around 199,747. What other initiatives or incentives do you feel that the government can put into place in order to further boost the number of account holders?
I think one important thing is the advertising abroad. I say advertising because those people who were willing to invest and were waiting for such a vehicle to exist have already done that. The low-hanging fruit is gone. It's almost 2 lakh investors, but almost $2 billion. So that is a very good ratio. As you move down in terms of people's portfolio of capital, they may need to be made aware of it. Testimonials help with that. Perhaps some people say that it's easy to sign up. Perhaps people say it's difficult. Those things will now make a difference. But you should simply expect a steady flow because economies are not just about rapid jumps and rapid falls. For an emerging market, signaling stability is the best thing. So 300 million per month would be a good sign, actually.
When you talk of signaling stability, there are a lot of other factors that contribute to that as well. How can Pakistan also move forward? Because there are certain factors that are external, there are certain factors that are internal, that deliberately do not want that stability in Pakistan to continue. How should Pakistan move forward, not only countering those spoilers, but also at the same time telling the whole world what Pakistan is going through and how it is moving forward in order to achieve economic stability?
This is the big question that is on everybody's mind, and I think it's very important to look at it as the risks that are in our neighborhood first. So what you have now is a very risky situation in Afghanistan. We are starting to plan for it, but no amount of planning can prepare you for that amount of violence, God forbid, if it erupts.
Of course.
That's the first thing. But as far as our resilience goes, the signs in Pakistan, if it were just an isolated domestic economy closed off from the world, would be positive. Now what we require is to see that the global markets also start to move dollars around in a more stable manner. politicization is removed from the system, at least minimized to some degree, and the FATF, which is our area of common conversation, starts to realize, as for example, the confession of S. Jaishankar, the Indian external minister's confession to his own party that this is what they're doing. I think it's time to push back on that, because the FATF is a big part of that. And all of the major centers of financial power in the world should reevaluate their portfolios, because since the pandemic, everybody has been in a kind of autopilot, not knowing what is going to happen next. Now it is time for people to start taking a sober look at who has come up and who has come down. And Pakistan has come up after the pandemic.
And finally, when it comes to Pakistan, there are those that are discriminating against it, but there are those that are standing by it as well. What does Pakistan need to do in order to further strengthen itself economically, stand with its friends, or also counter the negativity of its adversaries?
Above all, you should always try to be strong within. Friends and enemies can come and go, but as far as the reforms that this government is taking, they're positive and honest. But when I say look within, I'm particularly concerned about the tax base. We are tapping the overseas Pakistanis because they have an emotional attachment and they're also successful abroad. But as far as us living here, there is much to be done in terms of us pooling our capital for the benefit of everyone in society. And the government is working on it, but this is where the vested stakeholders become quite rigid, quite retaliatory, and that's where I want us to do the most work.
Let's hope that our people see through it and our people understand the situation and collectively move forward in order to stabilize our economy. Thank you very much, Dr. Chohan, to have joined us and to have talked to us not only about the Roshan Digital Accounts, but also so much more concerning Pakistan's economy. Ladies and gentlemen, that brings us to our third and last segment of the day, and that concerns what has happened to Hindu temple and the way our government and our people have reacted to it, including our judiciary. More in the following report.
There emerged some grotesque reports on social media of a violent mob attack on Ganesha temple in Rahim Yar Khan in Punjab province of Pakistan on Wednesday. Hundreds of people reportedly ransacked a Hindu temple in Bhong town and blocked the Sakhar Multan motorway after a 9-year-old Hindu boy who allegedly urinated in a local seminary was granted bail by a local court on Wednesday. Hindu elders did tender an apology to the seminary administration, saying the accused was a minor and mentally challenged. Responding to the situation late in the evening, district administration deployed rangers in the area after Deputy Commissioner Dr. Khurram Shehzad and District Police Officer Asad Sarfaraz visited the town. In order to ensure prompt action to safeguard rights of minorities and make an example out of this heinous event, the Supreme Court on Friday took suo motu notice of the incident and ordered immediate arrests of the culprits as well as temple's restoration. Furthermore, terrorism clauses had been incorporated in the first information report. Prime Minister Imran Khan strongly condemned the temple desecration and directed the district administration to probe the matter and take strict action against the culprits. Earlier, Special Assistant to Prime Minister on Political Communication Dr. Shehbaz Gill said that Prime Minister Office had taken notice of the sad and unfortunate incident. Islamabad has always been vigilant in ensuring the safety, security and well-being of its minority communities.
Now, whatever has happened in this temple is, of course, being condemned large and wide across Pakistan, whether it be our Prime Minister that has announced that his government will restore the Hindu temple that was damaged by this charged mob in the Bhong village of Punjab's Rahim Yar Khan, whether it be Shri Mazari Sahiba, who's talked very openly about it, whether it be Shehbaz Gill Sahib, who's talked, whether it be in the National Assembly today that condemned the attack on this Hindu temple in the Bhong area. This resolution was moved by the Minister of State for Parliamentary Affairs, Ali Muhammad Khan, who also said that the Prime Minister had also condemned the incident and had issued directives to bring the culprits to justice, whether it be the other members of the National Assembly that also denounced this heinous incident that happened in this temple in Bhong area of Rahim Yar Khan, or whether it be the judiciary of Pakistan also that has taken a suo motu notice as far as this incident is concerned, and has also censured the Punjab police for failing to safeguard the Hindu temple that was attacked by this mob. A very strong statement came from the Chief Justice of Pakistan in which he talked to all of those in the administration, and he said that the necessary needs to be done at the earliest and the culprits need to be brought to justice. This is what our government is, this is what our judiciary is, and this is how we need to react to incidents such as these. And this is how we will continue to do that whenever anything damages our country or our society. With that, ladies and gentlemen, we come to an end of today's newsroom. We'll see you inshallah on Monday with new segments and new stories that matter to you and to us in Pakistan. Till then, I implore you to kindly follow the SOPs and get yourselves vaccinated. And despite getting vaccinated, continue to follow the SOPs, wear the masks and wash your hands and stay away from crowded places. Allah Hafiz and have a great weekend.